and I am the Director of Global Product Marketing at Zerto. And we have with us Todd Pappas from Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic. And we do have a little bit of a hiccup in the scheduling. So at Todd's organization today at 10:30, they are going to be testing their fire alarms, which, as you'll see in the slides, we encourage testing at Zerto. We have our own automated disaster recovery testing. So what I do want to encourage everyone to do is to ask questions of Todd in the first half of the webinar. So he has about 5 or 6 slides. And at the end of that, we'll pause and take questions for Todd specifically. And he's going to try to rejoin us after the fire alarm testing, but he may not be able to do that. So we'll be sure to get as many of your questions in before 28 past the hour. And how you ask questions is there's a panel that pops up on the right-hand side of your screen, and there's a questions tab. Just type your question in there, and we'll be taking those as soon as Todd finishes his slide for Todd, and then at the end of the webinar, on any content. And then the last thing I like to point out before we move on from our title slide is our awards. So you can see that we won Best of Show at VMworld in 2011. What's unique about that is that was just 2 weeks after we GA'd the product. And since then, we've added other awards and then some industry recognition, like from Gartner. So I'll introduce Todd in just a minute, and then he's going to take you through his environment, give you an overview of his organization, what the environment looks like, the challenges with BCDR, purchasing process, and then why he selected Zerto, and then some best practices that he finds that works for him and his environment and its unique configuration, but maybe that will trigger some good ideas for you and things, how you can tackle BCDR within your organization. So Todd is a network engineer at Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic with over 20 years of experience. You can see he's been at other high-profile companies like Coca-Cola. His key responsibilities include management, disaster recovery, and performance across the infrastructure. And he has responsibilities along the lines of storage, virtualization, Cisco, and IP. Okay, Todd, at this point, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Todd Pappas, and I am the network engineer at Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic. Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic was founded in 1978. We are a not-for-profit organization. We are a what they call a level 3 patient center medical home, and we operate about 30 clinics in the Pacific Northwest, and some of the services include medical, behavioral health, pharmacy. We're pretty much strictly outpatient, and the organization itself, we are very progressive as far as our technology is concerned, and it's just been a wonderful place to work. I've been here for going on 4 years. So can I get the next slide, please? When I first got here, we were primarily probably about 10% virtualized. We are, as you can see, 99% virtualized now. We are a EMC shop with a Cisco Nexus environment on a Cisco UCS blade system. One of our challenges when I first got here is that our DR was very difficult to fail over. Basically, the technology we were using SAN mirror view, and for those of you familiar with NAS and Solera, we were using some Solera replication and log shipping, and it was a very time-consuming and very difficult to fail over. It took a lot of people and a lot of scripts to fail over. So since then, we were on the lookout for a new disaster recovery system and happened to find Zerto, and it has been it's just been wonderful. It's been a very, very good experience for us because usually it would take us about 3 to 4 hours to fail over, and not all the time did we have a consistent failover, especially with mirror view. Can I get the next slide, please? So things weren't consistent. It was very choppy. We had to play with log switching and log shipping and the SAN replication. And as I said, we found Zerto, and really installing Zerto was very, very simple. Getting the VMs configured was very simple for us. And here at this organization, we're required to do full interruption testing. And we have done 3 full interruption tests, one on our behavioral health system and one on our EMR and one on our Horizon Practice Plus system. And we're going to get ready to do a dental test failover shortly. Can I get the next slide, please? And I think we've gone over this, Zerto Virtual, yep. With Zerto, the failover is pretty seamless for us. And what had happened, my manager said, well, we'll give you an hour to get your EMR failed over. And I said, well, I could probably do it in under 15 minutes, and they didn't believe me. For one thing, our RTO is set for an hour, and our RPO here is 5 minutes. Currently with Zerto, our RPO is probably sub 10 seconds on average, usually around 6-7 seconds. But when we failed over the EMR system, we failed it over, and I timed it in 13 minutes. I was surprised. You know, the manager was shocked. He was like, "You got it all failed over in 13 minutes," and we did. And usually, how we do it is we establish a boot order. We do the failover. Of course, Zerto will shut the machines down, your primary virtual machines down, in order and bring up in the correct boot order at the DR site. I know I've kind of danced around. I'm not quite following the slides, but when you bring up Zerto, it's just a very seamless failover, and they will come up in the proper boot sequence that you have set up. And what we do is we make sure all the VMs are shut down at the primary DC. So we have that copy, and we bring them up to DR, and we have a whole testing team that goes through and tests. And so far, it's been very successful. It's really nice getting rid of the log shipping and the SAN replication. So can I get the next slide, please? Yep, commit before rollback, hardware agnostic. We do 24 hours of journaling here. It's kind of like a DVR. And the best thing about Zerto now is you do not have to really tend the journal so much. You can kind of set it and forget it, and the journal will expand as needed. What other good things can I say here? The Zerto system has been very, very robust and very reliable. It's just one of those systems we don't have to tend to or constantly babysit. We install it, you know, we do our quarterly updates, and from that point forward, there's not a lot of babysitting. It integrates seamlessly into our hypervisor, which is VMware. So can we go to the next slide? I think we're getting close here. As far as best practices, just to kind of give you an overview, our DR site, we have a 1 gigabyte Metro E from the data center to our DR site. It's about 20 miles away. Previous to that, we were only 300 megs. We were getting excellent RPO performance from Zerto. And I just wanted to mention that some of our DR and failovers are pretty mandatory because we do have auditors that come in and want to see that we performed a successful failover. So as many of you in healthcare know, we're pretty heavy regulated, not only just with behavioral health, but with the medical stuff, because we get auditing through the feds as well. We're also going through meaningful use phase 2, I believe. Don't quote me. I'm not up on the meaningful use stuff. But as far as that's concerned, I can't think of anything more to tell you. I'm certainly open for questions right now.
Okay, great, Todd. And don't worry about sticking with the slides because I thought you told a good story. I think the fact that it's, easy for you to use, you kind of set it and forget it. The one thing that you did have to babysit in the past, maybe a little bit with Zerto, would have been the journaling capability. But, as you said, I can't remember if it was 2.0 or 3.0 where we added kind of the auto expansion. So, as I mentioned at the start, in about 14 minutes, unfortunately Todd is going to need to drop because they're having some testing in his building. So if any questions could come in for Todd, that would be great. I'll give it a few minutes. Well, I'll give it a few seconds actually before I move on, and then I can start presenting some of the product side. And then, of course, as questions come in, I'll make sure I stop after every slide or two so that if anyone does have questions for Todd, we make sure we get those answered. Oh, Todd has a question for you. Is your DR recovery site owned by you or is it a colo?
The DR site is currently, we're co-load with a county data center.
Okay, great. Give it another couple of seconds. Now, I'm going to start moving through the Zerto slides, but I will keep an eye on the questions pane, Todd, and if something comes up, I'll make sure that we get it to you in the next couple of minutes. Okay. So if we take a step back and kind of think about why do you need disaster recovery, this is actually part of an infographic that's on our website. We did a survey of, it was in the hundreds, I can't remember if it was like 300 or 400-ish, of our customers and other end users, and said, hey, what causes, what have been the cause of outages with your site? And it's funny, Todd and Shannon Snowden, our senior technical marketing architect, were just talking about, power outages that they kind of experienced during fire alarm testing or hardware failures and things like that. So, when we think about disasters, we often position as kind of hurricanes and natural disasters, but, most of the time that's not really the case. It's a hardware failure or power loss, things like that. So with Zerto, as we start to try to trend towards a software-defined data center, really you shouldn't have any dependencies on the hardware because you want everything aligned with a total software strategy so you can really abstract dependencies on the hardware. So Zerto kind of recognizing that trend and noticing that physical replication, which is where most people were doing it, really undermines the investment in virtualization and saw that gap. So Zerto pulled replication from the storage layer up into the hypervisor. So all the benefits that you get from virtualization on your production site, you can now extend to your disaster recovery strategy and move towards that software-defined data center. Oh, Todd, a question came in for you. So how did Zerto integrate with VMware products? Did you use VMware HA for failover to the DR site?
Just to answer that, it integrated very seamlessly. No problem. Zerto actually held our hand for our first install, and after that, our upgrades we did ourselves. Not a heavy learning curve on that. We use VMHA, but we did not use HA for failover to the DR site. Basically, we had a scripted failover DR test, and the steps required to fail over a protection group, very, very minimal. If you have your boot order and everything set up, it's like all within, I think, 5 clicks. Very, very simple.
Okay, great. Thanks, Todd. So with that kind of alignment to the software-defined data center, we're going to transition over to talk about the architecture. So here I have a very simple overview of our architecture, and I say simple because here we have 2 sites, and Zerto is able to support replication between multiple sites. So there are 2 main components of the software that are used in the typical enterprise use case. One is the Zerto Virtual Manager, and the other is the Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance. So you can see the Zerto Virtual Manager is at the site level, and that's a plugin right into vCenter Server. So to answer the question in terms of the integration, it installs seamlessly in about 30 minutes, and it's just another tab within the vCenter Server. And then on each ESX host, you have the Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance, and that is what actually replicates the data. And I do want to stress it's an appliance, not an agent. It doesn't require, ongoing babysitting like a lot of agents do. The Zerto Virtual Manager is actually the only piece of software that you'll touch, and that's going to manage the virtual replication appliances for you. So before I go into the benefits of the architecture, another question came in for Todd. Can you quantify the amount of data or VM guests that you are replicating?
Yes, we are 45 virtual machines are being replicated, and approximately 20 terabytes.
Okay, great. So a couple of the benefits. So one, because we are in the hypervisor, we can replicate from anything to anything. So you can see there we have pure IBM NetApp over to Nimble and EMC. Doesn't matter what the underlying storage infrastructure is. It's highly scalable. So as you add another ESX host, you just add another virtual replication appliance. And that's going to enable you to scale the environment really nicely versus a physical appliance where, it probably works pretty well when you have 5 or 10 ESX hosts. But as you get to 15, 20, 25, now that poor physical box is really getting stressed. The continuous block level replication delivers very, very, very low RPOs, as you heard Todd mention. And, he's typically under 10 seconds, usually right around 6. And the journal is what provides that point-in-time failure. So it's funny that Todd called it DVR because I call it TiVo. It's kind of like TiVo for your environment. So it's 1 hour, up to 5 days worth of data, and every couple of seconds you have a point that you can fail back to. So it works well for natural disasters. However, if you do something like an upgrade, you execute the upgrade at 4 o'clock and the environment's not quite right since you performed that upgrade, roll it back to 3:59 and 56 seconds, completely undo the upgrade, and take a look at what might have happened. And then, of course, we don't want to be dominating the network, so we do some bandwidth optimization, so compression, throttling, things like that. So the unit of protection that we use is the virtual protection group. So this is a group of VMs that make up an application. So, for example, you might have SharePoint, an ERP, an EMR type of application. So you put those VMs together in a group, and Zerto will say, okay, no matter where these VMs get moved in the environment, I'm going to make sure I protect them in exactly the same way. So for example, if you do use kind of the neat features in VMware like HA or DRS and you're moving VMs around, you don't have to worry about the relationship with the hardware because, again, we are storage agnostic. We are replicating the hypervisor. And that virtual protection group is going to tell Zerto hey, you know, we need to make sure that we keep these VMs at the same level of protection. And this is what gives you that consistency across the VMs. Okay, before we move over to the automation, another question came in for Todd. And Todd, what was the bandwidth that you have between your two sites?
We have a 1 gig Metro E connection between the DC and the DR.
Okay, great. So, and although Todd does have, you know, obviously ample bandwidth for replication, the minimum requirement for Zerto is 5 megabits per second. And we do have customers who are using, you know, 5 megabits per second, 20 megabits per second, and are still able to achieve, you know, very good RPOs, you know, in the same range that Todd mentioned, 10 seconds. So for the automation, so we've talked a lot about the data. So replicating within the hypervisor, being storage agnostic, grouping VMs together, you know, in application, and, you know, managing the data. But now we want to make that data usable. Because in many times with the disaster recovery process, they'll say, well, the data's on the target site, now go make applications out of it and go use it. And this is how Todd's able to achieve that 13-minute RTO, is because of all the automation that's built into the product. So once you hit the big arrow, and I'll show it to you in the user interface, we have a couple pictures of it, Zerto is going to start to build the virtual machines in the boot order that's specified, and you can re-IP if you need to. Sometimes you need to have different IP addresses to avoid conflicts. All that is handled automatically within the software. So that's how we're able to achieve those RTOs of minutes versus hours. The click to test anytime. So within the virtual protection group, you'll set up re-IPing in the event of a failover. You can also set up re-IPing in the event of a test and leverage like a bubble and internal network that you have available to you. So you can do testing anytime. While you're testing, replication is still happening, and in the off chance that during a test something happened, you have a power outage, you know, server blank something, you need to recover, you can stop the test and begin the actual failover process. And offsite cloning, so you can create a copy of a virtual protection group that you can use for things like test and development, so that when you are, you know, making changes to the IT environment, you're using a real copy of the environment and what it looked like in the last hour versus going back, you know, several weeks, and that could cause issues for you. So something new that we announced just in early June with Zerto Virtual Replication 3.5 is offsite backup. So with this feature, we are able to take a backup from the replicated data. So we're increasing the usefulness of that data at the target site and helping reduce the impact on production applications. So you can see the virtual backup appliance. There's one per location. It runs at the target site as a service within the Zerto Virtual Manager. The replication is based on Virtual Protection Group. So when you're setting up your disaster recovery policies for the virtual protection group, you can also set up backup policies, so really giving you a complete picture of your data protection strategy at the application level. So different types of repositories can be used. You can use storage local to the target site. You can go to a third site, and you can also present any, you know, external public cloud data to that process as well, so you can use things like Amazon. And you can recover in VMware vSphere or vCloud environments. So how we do the backups is through a backup package, and you can see that there's the VPG checkpoint, the configuration file, and all the metadata information that's on the particular backup package. And again, this is at the Virtual Protection Group. What we really want to note is that this is just a portable flat file. It can be pulled in and used in any Zerto system. So it does need Zerto Virtual Manager to pull in the information and make it usable, but it can be stored in a public cloud. And all the VMs are at a consistent point in time, so giving you that application consistency. And before we move on, I do just want to give a last call for questions for Todd, because he is going to need to drop in about 1 minute. But in the meantime, I'll talk about the simple management from anywhere. So this is just a picture of our user interface. So you can see it's a plugin right into vCenter Server. You can see that picture on the left, and you see the Zerto tab. And then on the right is our browser-based option. So you can access that from anywhere. And actually, a good use case of that, one of our customers just provides a link to his manager so he can go in and download the audit reports and things like that instead of giving him full vCenter credentials. So he can just use the browser-based option and give him access just to Zerto Virtual Replication. Okay, Todd, well, good luck with your testing, and I hope you can join us back.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So, and then the multi-site replication and migration. So we can replicate from several sites to one shared infrastructure. So it's natively multi-tenant, so you can help reduce operational costs and capital costs because you are able to replicate to that one shared infrastructure. We have no strict requirements in terms of latency. I have a customer who's replicating from Texas to Dubai. The RPO for him, it's under 40 seconds usually. One time it did creep up to 42 seconds, he told me, but usually it's right around 35, 36 seconds. And it's also, we also offer bidirectional support. So many of our customers don't have a dedicated DR site. They have two kind of production sites, and when site A goes down, they fail over A to B, or if B goes down, then vice versa. So they have kind of half of their production environment across two sites. And Zerto is able to support that bidirectional replication. We also support replication within a single vCenter instance. So you might have a smaller satellite office that's separated by maybe 10 or 15 miles from a larger data center. And although they're physically separated, logically they're within the same vCenter server. So with that, we are able to support replication from that smaller satellite office into the larger data center. And then lastly, we do support cloud providers. We have almost 150 cloud service providers that offer disaster recovery as a service built on Zerto. So if you decide you want to work with a cloud provider, we can help you there as well. So the comprehensive reporting. So the most probably interesting report is the audit report. And what that does, it's called a recovery report. It's kind of the top one. And it details each step within a disaster recovery test and then the time it takes to execute that step. So once you've run this report a couple of times, you'll know it takes 2 minutes and 43 seconds to recover SharePoint. It takes 7 minutes and 52 seconds to recover Exchange. So it gives you that level of detail so you can have a lot of confidence in terms of your disaster recovery testing. And then you have resource planning chart, resource planning information, so you can see, what is a VM utilizing at the source and target site in terms of storage and things like that to help you better plan for future purposes. And we also have backup reports. So that will send you information on the backups that are being executed so you can see how those processes are going as well. So and I think Todd highlighted some of this in his section, talking about how complex and manual the replication process is. It requires a lot of babysitting. You need to look at each step. You need to make sure that the relationship between the virtual environment and physical replication doesn't break. And it's just constant ongoing management and maintenance of the process. And with Zerto, we're able to eliminate many, many of those steps and take you to a very, very simple and easy process. It's funny, one of my other customers kind of made the comment of, we're able to really architect our environment now for performance versus BCDR. And I'm sure many of you have done this. You've laid out an application, you've put volumes where you want them to be, data stores, VMs, all exactly the way you want to get the best performance for this application because you're using it to run your business. And then, okay, we have to protect it. And then, oh, now we need to move these, data stores here. These VMs have to go over here. This relationship needs to be tighter. And that really undermines the investment that you've made in your IT infrastructure. But with Zerto, because we install seamlessly into the infrastructure, you don't need to change your application configuration. How you've configured it for production to maximize performance is exactly how you can leave it and still use Zerto Virtual Replication. So we have talked a lot about private cloud BCDR, but we are able to support cloud providers, as I mentioned. It's a great way to kind of evaluate a cloud provider because disaster recovery as a service is going to have much more robust SLAs versus like a backup as a service. So if you have kind of a cranky application that you would like to turn over to a cloud provider, you can test them out with disaster recovery as a service. Then once you get comfortable, give them the whole application and let them use it across the entire environment. And you can see there are some of the, we have cloud providers internationally, so Colt, Kelway are UK based, and then Island Blue, Rock and Peak 10 are US based. And we have other cloud providers, you know, all around the world. As I mentioned, we're approaching the 150 mark. So in closing, we have a truly virtual-aware solution. We replicate VMs and VMDKs. We don't replicate at the LUN level, which helps us get very granular in terms of replicating exactly what you want. The aggressive service levels and automation we've built in are really aligned with what you're looking for an enterprise-class production application. We automate everything possible to make it as simple and easy to use as we can, and also predictable. Because in the event of a disaster, you know, you'd like predictable performance, and through automation, we're able to achieve that. So, and it's scalable, software only, and as I mentioned, very, very simple. So, and with that, so I have Todd's email up here. If this wasn't actually, we always put the email up there, but he said, you know, my email's on the side in case I need to drop and I can't join back if someone has another question for me. Certainly they can email Todd, and he'd love to hear from you. So certainly email me if you have any other questions, and we are going to take a couple as well. And then also on the line, kind of our silent participant is Shannon Snowden, and he's our Senior Technical Marketing Architect. So if you have any real technical questions in terms of how you want to architect the solution, he will be able to answer those for you. So one question I have here is, do we provide services in Africa? I'm in Nigeria and getting requests for DRAS. So off the top of my head, I'm actually not aware of a cloud service provider located in Nigeria, but what I will do is follow up with you with an email and include our cloud sales director, and he'll probably be able to put you in touch with someone. I can tell you that we do have a customer in Nigeria, Leadway Pencher in Utsa, who's the IT infrastructure manager there, did a webinar with us in February. So I can certainly put you in touch with a local reference. And another question that came in, does your product support environment that consists both VM and physical servers? Unfortunately, not. We just support virtual servers right now. And I am unaware of any plans to support replication for a physical environment. So another question that we get quite a bit, and I'm actually going to let Shannon answer this one. So Shannon, someone asks, how do you compare with Site Recovery Manager?
We've not heard that one before.
I know.
Basically, Site Recovery Manager is the orchestration component that needs some sort of replication component added to it. What we do is, as Jennifer has explained, we do both the replication and the orchestration. Plus, you get the addition of the offsite backup feature that just was released. So we're much more of a streamlined, integrated product that gives you the performance that you're looking for from the hardware-based arrays, but without all the overhead of the management of it. And it's all very simple software install.
Okay, great. And another question for you, Shannon. What about SQL Server and Oracle consistency?
We actually have a lot of SQL and Oracle databases supported with application consistent checkpoints. The way that works is we've got the capability of leveraging whatever quiesce the database is. So if it's VSS, quiesced in SQL, then we'll get an application consistent checkpoint from there. And if it's Oracle, say it's running on Linux, for example, then Oracle Backup quiesces that database, and then we'll get an application consistent checkpoint through Oracle. So it's pretty. We've got a lot of those databases in production, as Jennifer can attest to. Very large and very heavy used I/O. So we've been pretty tested in production and all over the world at this point.
Yeah, actually, the customer that I mentioned, Leeway Pension, they're protecting SQL Server with Zerto. It's a single VM, but it is 2 terabytes. And he looked at many other options, and it was difficult for him to find anything other than Zerto. And then we have another case study, Leupold and Stevens, and they're protecting Oracle with Zerto. And those are the 2 I can recall off the top of my head. As Shannon mentioned, we have many, many other reference customers that we could put you in touch with. So here is a question I can answer. What virtualization technologies do you support? So today it's VMware, and we can support VMware vSphere as well as vCloud environments. So for example, if you've a cloud provider who's built their environment on vCloud and they want to support a customer who has a vSphere environment and they're replicating there, we can support replication between those 2 different types of environments and also between different versions of VMware vSphere. We did make an announcement in February that we will be adding other hypervisors, and the next one on the list is Hyper-V. So, and that we're hoping for that at the end of the year, and that announcement was made public in February. Let's see. Oh, Todd is back. Todd, how was your fire drill?
Pretty quick.
That's good.
Quick and organized.
Good, good. So I don't know if there are any other questions for Todd in terms of his environment, and then also just generally anything else on Zerto Virtual Replication. Give it another minute, and the little commercial I'll give while I'm waiting for questions to come in is we love to do proof of concepts. They're at no charge. It will install the software into your production environment if you like, or a test bed if that's your preference, and let you have 2 weeks with the product to test it out. And I can't encourage you enough to do that, just because, you know, and that's why I love having customers on like Todd, because when I say RPOs are, 10 seconds and RTOs are, 10 minutes, 13 minutes, and I don't mean 10 minutes to get the data to the other side. I mean 10 minutes and the application is up and running and end users can access it. And that's such a powerful message, but some IT people out there are skeptics, and please do an eval. We'd love to have you try the software, and you would see the power of Zerto Virtual Replication for yourself. And I don't see any other questions coming in. So Todd, I don't know if you have anything else to add. I'll give you a going once, going twice.
I will add something about our infrastructure. For those of you that have the budget for this, I would highly suggest Zerto will handle all your networking as far as changing IP addresses. Luckily, we were able to get OTB into our budget. That's overlay transport virtualization, where you extend your layer 2 across to our DR. So we've been very, very fortunate to have that. But Zerto will handle pretty easily changing the IP addresses and getting onto the correct network. I just wanted to put that in there about our environment, that we were lucky enough to get that into the budget. So.
Okay, great. Shannon, anything for you to add?
I would say on the physical question that we do support RDNs, and that oftentimes solves the issue of the going between physical and virtual of supporting the both physical and virtual mode RDNs. So just wanted to throw that in there at the end.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for spending 40 minutes with us. I really appreciate you taking the time. Todd and Shannon, thank you so much. Todd, I can't tell you how helpful it is for people to hear from one of our customers.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much.